and ungainly, and you know, you can't accomplish things because you've now pushed down everything in your life that you wanted to say. And there's something wonderful about the creative process in the context of we are collaborating, where you get to wrestle around and you get to argue in a, you know, I mean, it can be loud, it can be sort of angry, but you're still trying to get to the same place, and that's a wonderful thing. And God knows we've had that in project teams often, depending on who the players are. And you know, at the end of the day, we all go, okay, so where are we now again? And let's go forward. And I think it's marvelous. You just gotta. There are some ground rules around that, but you gotta get it out.
You know, on that note, I ran into this woman who is writing a book. She's sort of a business professional. She's writing an interesting book about the confluence of music, rock bands, and how they relate to organizations.
Is this your wife, Peter?
No, it isn't. She's also brilliant, but not in that sense. So, apropos exactly of what you said, a little story from her book, an excerpt. She looks at two bands, Guns N' Roses and U2, and how they deal with conflicts. And it's kind of interesting. Guns N' Roses obviously was not successful, and their sort of paradigm it illustrates what you don't want to do. You know, Axl Rose kind of sort of took over the band, and they had all these problems. And what they didn't do is they simply, apropos of bloated, whatever you call it, emotional, they didn't confront any of the problems. Axl Rose.
They didn't what?
They didn't have any confrontations, even though he was sort of dictatorial in it. He took over the band and apparently stole the band name and everything. His process was just leave everyone in the dark, and he was so averse to a confrontation, and that really ultimately they drank, and it, you know, that because they never sort of argued it out. And I can kind of see the Axl Rose. I'm a bit like confrontation averse to you when you said that. I'm like, geez, Henry, what the hell are you saying? I mean, I know this is getting crazy and everyone's fucked, but don't say it anymore. You know, it's not like I don't have opinions. But on the other hand, U2, and all these bands have been friends since they were kids. U2, they just used to argue the shit out for hours and hours. And there was this album, what's the album? It was kind of bluesy, Rattle and Hum.
Yeah.
That was like the nadir of their band. I actually stupidly liked the album. But they were like, how could we have gotten into this place where everyone panned the record, and you know, how did it get there? And they argued it out. And that's why they continue to be incredibly successful.
So how many people have taken the Myers-Briggs personality test?
I have.
It's got to almost be unanimous. So aside from the fact that the social psychologists actually think that's a lousy test and they have their own system, some researchers gave that personality test to many different cultures, ethnicities, and various things. And the distribution among the 16 is pretty much constant. You know, there's some that are pretty high, and there always are this little need for this one personality. So the conclusion is that you need a diversity of personality types. You need some people that are totally risk aversion, conflict aversion, or whatever, and you need some people that are totally outrageous and going for the guts and the blood and everything. I was giving a talk at Genome Sciences, you know, they're their kind of hot dog, and I think Hassel is the guy that leads it. And I met him at a finance conference, and he invited me to give a talk, and I was talking about diversity. And at the end of it, they're all quiet, and I kind of looked at them and I said, have you ever taken the Myers-Briggs personality test? And they all raised their hand. I said, what are you? And they were all the same. They're all INTP or whatever. And they were kind of looking at each other, and they say, that's why we're having problems. We don't have any bean counters. We're all innovators. You know, it was just like, and it's really true. a successful business, a mature business needs a lot of different types of personality.
Probably a relationship needs it as well. I mean, my wife is not confrontation averse whatsoever.
So let's hear it for polygamy.
That's another solution, another innovation. It's really big in Salt Lake City, I understand.
Yeah, with the Jewish population, it's pretty small.
Amazing.
Just say it.
Well, I think there's a real conflict between kind of professional, going through a process, getting it done, being efficient, being proud of what you do, and going through this process where there's conversation and something emerges and it's undefined and people are uncomfortable and there's conflict and there's argument. And, you know, I don't think sometimes we really embrace that messy process as much as that we should, because we're all so focused on time.
I think people are afraid of it too.
Yeah.
Well, in order for conflict to blossom, there has to be an underlying foundation of trust. Because you can't, if you're not vulnerable, if you're not willing to open up and truly engage in that discussion, and that's based on trust, right? And that's the foundation.
You have to be a model of it. I mean, I think one of the things we try to do to lead through this stuff and say, you know, okay, be creative, is you have to like be a model of what you're talking about. And if you're leading, you have to be that. You can't talk about it. You can't read the book about it. You have to live it. And
That's
you
integrity.
have to deliver it straight up, across the boards, and the team will look at you and go, he's a phony.
Well, why are we so afraid, like what Brenda was saying, of this open-ended process?
Well,
Because we're going to come up with stupid answers, or it's going to lead to
No,
nowhere?
I think that it's largely misunderstood. I think that the creative process is messy, pretty much always. If you're creative, you're gonna throw a lot of shit at the wall. You know, the form may be a sketch, it may be 300 sketches, it may be a painting, it may be words that you type over and you're writing a poem, or you throw the draft away, or you're writing lyrics. I mean, sometimes it just comes full bore, but that's one person. Now, you're in a team, you're designing a building, there's 30 of you, and those teams really are that big. And so, there's design components to it, there's structural components to it, there's engineering components to it, and you're all thinking together, and so much of it goes in the garbage can, it's unbelievable. Until you get it designed. And that is the truth about creativity. And what's happened is we've made it into, just look at the end product, it's so pretty. And everybody goes, oh yes, that's how it was done. That's not how it was done. It was messy as hell. Look at Edison's work and see how many times, and how sloppy and screwy and all of that stuff, and nobody knows that, how dirty you get and how much stuff you throw away. And if you're really creating something, rehearse a band for a while and see how you scream at each other, or how many takes you do to get it right, or whatever, and how late the hours get. That's the process, and it's turned into like I don't know, it's like a TV show where you just see the end and it's like, oh, here, it's perfect.
That's what's so fun for me when I receive everybody's answers for what I've done. This author, one of the things she wrote was, step one, I am distinctly uncomfortable and I am about to burst into emotion. Like that's her